Welcome everyone to Miracle Technologies Inc. Knowledge Base series. We are starting this channel to spread the knowledge gained through years of industry experience. Today we are starting with email cyber attacks and prevention. So, unless you have been living under a rock, you must have seen businesses falling prey to ever increasing cybercrimes onslaught. Billions and billions of hard earned dollars have been lost and trillions more are at stake. These are some best practice guidelines to identify email cyber attacks and their prevention. Here is a statistics from IC3. As you can see, there have been 13.3 billion total loss, and these are the only losses which have been reported, and there are many more. Uh, Even though the importance of hardened cybersecurity infrastructure can't be overemphasized, knowledge and common sense of the trained end users is equally critical to prevail against cyber exploits. Without further ado, let us learn how to identify and prevent common cybersecurity threats. So let's start with the ransomware because everyone must have heard about it. Ransomware is a malicious software which encrypts, basically locks the data on the victim's network, and the attacker demands ransom in exchange for unlocking data. Some attackers even threaten to release confidential or compromising information to other criminals and public. So that particular piece makes it even more complicated. So now, for example, even if you have prepared against ransomware, and you have decent enough backups which you can restore within reasonable amount of time, you are still not out of the waters. Reason being, they can still share and release your confidential information to other entities and also blackmail you on that. So there are few ransomware attack methods. Ransomware may be installed on victim's computer through an email attachment. This email comes from a known whitelisted sender because these known senders might have already been compromised. The more sophisticated attacks may even be extremely similar to the ones which a particular person or department might be expecting. For example, HR may receive a malicious attachment disguised as a resume for a legitimate job opening. Ransomware may be unloaded to a computer or network if someone clicks on a malicious ad on a website. The website itself may be known good site where you go frequently, but somehow at that particular point in time, that ad on that website was infected. Visiting a malicious website may also compromise a computer and ultimately the entire network. Again, the site itself may be a known good site, but it might have been hacked at that particular moment. So, how do we prevent against it? Implement battle hardened firewalls to protect perimeter, filter both inbound and outbound traffic, uh, may also compensate perimeter firewalls with software-based firewalls in individual computers, especially nowadays because folks are moving around with the devices, BYOD, etc. Uh, so who is responsible for this particular component? IT department, obviously. And then keep antivirus and anti-malware software up to date and run regular scans. Responsibility again, IT department. End users must also learn how to confirm that all antivirus and anti-malware software definitions files are up to date because they usually receive notifications if they are not. If they see an issue, obviously they need to let the IT department know. And then configure and maintain regular, frequent backups. This cannot be emphasized enough. Uh, Plus, all of your backups need to be encrypted because in most of these attacks, not just the actual data, but also the backups are compromised. So it must be encrypted. And those encryption keys obviously should not be on the data which is being backed up. After a successful ransom attack, secure backups may be the only solution to recover. The backup should be designed in a way that the computer restores may be performed within minutes or at least within hours. It should not take weeks or months. Uh, and then provide the minimal required access to network resources, because hopefully the victim doesn't have enough privileges to infect entire network. So if the permission sets are not set up correctly, any single victim can compromise entire network. So encrypt data both at rest and in transit. Educate end users on how to identify and avoid malicious content. Absolutely never ever click on a URL and attachment from an unknown sender. Be extra cautious about opening URLs and attachments from even from known senders. Ask yourself simple questions. Were you expecting it? Does it look legitimate? Learn how to identify the actual sender's address hidden behind the label. Simply hovering over the sender's name may reveal the actual sender's address. Here are a few examples. But most of the times, about 95% of the time, you will be able to reveal the actual sender name like this, but certain sophisticated attacks hide it in their email headers, and that has to be addressed with your IT department. Again, don't click on any advertisements. Uh, and then there are some additional resources. Actually, there are a lot of additional resources, especially from FBI and White House. They are spending a whole lot of resources on end users and corporates education regarding this. The second attack is phishing. Phishing cyber attacks try to fool you into providing sensitive information. Once a victim provides the sensitive information, including credentials, the malicious actors use the information to gain access to the networks, emails, bank accounts, as sending malicious phishing emails to your unsuspected trusted contacts on your behalf. So, phishing attack methods. The most common ones are password reset alerts through emails, and usually they are able to figure out where you are hosting your emails, so they will make it look like they are coming from your provider. So be extra careful. Most of these providers obviously are not going to ask you to provide your passwords through emails. So be careful. Never ever use your credentials from any of these unsolicited emails. They will pretend as if you have received a voicemail or fax. And once you click on the link, they either infect your computer, or they may appear harmless and just ask you for your user ID and password to log in. Once you provide that, they steal that and then use it for attacks afterwards. Requesting personal information updates. Phishing email will pretend to come from a legitimate business requesting you to update your contact information. For example, it could be your bank or whatever. And they would ask information such as date of birth, social security, contact information, and addresses. Some may even request information such as your bank or credit card account number and pins. So absolutely never ever provide that uh, for any of the emails in that regard. These phishing scams called wishing may also come through phone calls. So again, through the phone calls, they will ask for the similar information. So please don't provide that. Phishing attacks called smishing may also come through text messages. Again, the same rule applies. Some may even hijack your web traffic and redirect you to a familiar and trusted looking website. So this is even a bit more complicated depending on how sophisticated the attacker is. So the website may look just like your bank or work environment. So be careful. Uh, how do we prevent it? Most phishing attacks pass through all security parameters undetected because in itself they don't have any malicious content in terms of infected attachments, code, or a URL. They are simple forms, and victims practically willingly give away all of the sensitive information. Who is responsible? Obviously, end users are the main part in this one. The best and only method to protect against most phishing attacks is to educate end users. Both IT department and end users need to work as a team to develop common sense approach to thwart such phishing attacks. Implement multi-factor authentication. That's extremely helpful. So even if your passwords have been compromised, they will still not be able to access your infrastructure. So, spoofing is the next attack. Spoofing and phishing go hand in hand. Malicious actors trap by disguising email addresses, sender names, phone numbers, and website URLs. Same thing again. They will make it look like they are coming from a legitimate sender. They may ask you to wire them some money, personal information. So you have to be careful with that, especially with the spoofed URLs. It may look like the trusted URL. For example, trusteddomain.net uh, may appear similar to trusteddomain.com. So it could be like, .net.com, or it could be other spelling error here and there. Again, end user education on that, and obviously IT department need to set up proxy servers, implement multi-factor authentication, uh, pay close attention to names, underlying email addresses, etc. And then the malicious payloads, the old way of the infections. Uh, Viruses, malware, spywares, adwares, worms, Trojan horses, keyloggers, among others. Uh, Once the victim clicks, downloads, reads, or try to install these malicious payloads, the computers and potentially entire IT infrastructures are immediately compromised. Many of the sophisticated attacks may go unnoticed for months and years. Luckily, nowadays most of the antiviruses uh, do block most of these kind of attacks. So, but still, obviously, there are certain things, responsibilities which everyone need to be careful about. So trusted enterprise firewalls and email gateways should be used to prevent these malicious payloads. Software based firewalls, obviously, set up proxy servers. Don't click on any email attachment unless you are absolutely certain of the content's uh, legitimacy. Don't randomly click on URLs. uh, so this is our attempt to provide you with information on how to protect against these cyber attacks. If you have any further questions or comments, please feel free to contact us, and also support our YouTube channel by subscribing so we can continue this series. Thank you, and be careful.